Price of new cars has hit a milestone.
What's driving car prices higher?
What are you hearing from consumers when they come in here?
Prices too high. Car prices seem to have been rising ever since COVID, and there's no turning back on that.
$75,000 trucks that die at 5,000 miles. 15 models nobody should buy. That is not clickbait. That is the exact nightmare a lot of owners are living right now. Standing in a dealer service drive on a Tuesday morning while their 2-year-old truck sits on a flatbed, dead, with less than 5,000 miles on the clock. They did everything right. Bought the brand their dad swore by, paid real money, changed the oil on time, and the engine still seized on the highway with their kids in the back. No warning, no mercy. Just a sudden loss of power, steering, and braking assist because of a defect buried in the bearings and crankshaft that was baked into the truck the day it left the factory. Here is the part nobody tells you in the showroom. Somewhere, in a building far from that service drive, there is a spreadsheet that already knew this was going to happen. It knew the machining debris Toyota left inside its new twin-turbo V6 would migrate to the main bearings and grind them down. It knew the GM 6.2-liter L87 V8 could have out-of-spec connecting rods and crankshafts that turn a luxury truck into a 5,000-mile time bomb. And it knew the fix, at least at first, would be something as absurd as changing to thicker oil and hoping nobody notices that a $75,000 truck now depends on a Band-Aid instead of a cure. In this video, I am going to walk you through 15 trucks people are regretting in 2026, from the mildly annoying to the genuinely catastrophic, and show you the one design decision they all have in common. Some will just quietly drain your bank account. A few can put you and your family at risk in a single bad moment. Before you sign for anything, you need to know which side of that line your next truck is on. So, here is the question I want in your head the whole time you are watching. If a brand new $75,000 truck can die at 5,000 miles without a warning light, how sure are you that the one you are about to buy is not built on the same mistake? For about 80 years, a pickup truck was a simple promise. Big, lazy engines that did not work very hard. Thick metal, loose tolerances, parts you could name, and repairs you could do in a driveway with a socket set and a Saturday. That promise quietly got broken, and nobody put it on the window sticker. Instead of big, under-stressed V8 engines that loafed along forever, we got smaller engines running hotter, turbochargers bolted on, direct injection, and computers buried everywhere under the hood. At the same time, the bodies got sealed, the components turned into assemblies, and the trucks themselves became software products where half the vehicle lives behind a touchscreen. This was not an accident. It was a spreadsheet decision. A small, complicated, hard-to-fix engine is cheaper to build and much more profitable to service than a big, simple one. A truck wrapped in software locks you into dealer tools, dealer diagnostics, and dealer labor. A truck that depreciates faster, feeds the trade-in cycle, and keeps you coming back every few years instead of driving the same boring workhorse for decades. Somewhere along the way, the industry realized there is more money in selling you progress than in selling you margin for error. So tolerances got tighter, temperatures climbed, and the room for a manufacturing mistake essentially disappeared. That is the thread I want you to keep in your head before we start the actual list of $75,000 trucks that die at 5,000 miles. When you look at the 15 models people are regretting in 2026, watch how often the problem child is sitting on the new way side of the line. Forced induction, heat, sealed assemblies, and electronics everywhere. The old promise was a truck you could understand and fix. The new reality is a truck that phones home and decides for itself when it is done. Once you see that shift, you cannot unsee it, and the rest of this list will make a lot more sense. Number 15 on this list, and I'm putting it here gently, is the Ford Maverick. On paper, it's exactly what people begged the industry for. A cheap, honest little truck that doesn't drink fuel and doesn't take up 3 parking spaces. In the real world, it's been on a recall parade. Cameras, taillights, and now the integrated park module on certain hybrid models that can fail to lock into park, letting the truck quietly roll away after you think you've stopped it. None of that is catastrophic in the stranded on the highway sense. But if you bought one expecting set it and forget it, you've spent more Saturdays at the dealer than you planned. And the hybrid system underneath is a lot more complicated than the window sticker lets on. Number 14 is the Chevy Colorado and its twin, the GMC Canyon. Under the skin, they're the same truck, built in the same plant, sold with the same promise. Modern midsize workhorses that fix all the complaints about the last generation. Early on, they didn't. Owners grumbled about powertrain behavior, braking feel, and infotainment systems that froze, rebooted, or randomly glitched in the middle of a drive until software updates calmed them down. And here's the small detail that tells you the bigger story. On a bunch of trims, you can't get a real low-range transfer case anymore. You get terrain modes in a dial and trust that the computer will sort it out. That's a truck that still looks rugged in the commercial, but was quietly engineered for the parking lot, not the trail. Number 13 is the Ford Ranger, and this one is strange because not long ago, it sat near the top of the reliability rankings. It hasn't suddenly turned into junk. The bones are still decent, and the chassis tuning gets good reviews. What happened is everyone else improved, while it mostly stood still. Recalls stacked up, squeaks and rattles inside the cab showed up earlier than they should, and people I know who run them complain that the interior feels loose long before the truck should. It's not a disaster so much as a broken promise. You bought a truck expecting tight, modern refinement and got something that feels 10 years old every time a panel buzzes on the highway. Number 12 is the Jeep Gladiator, and I'll be straight with you on this one. People want to love it. On the lot, it's perfect. A Wrangler with a bed, real off-road hardware, removable doors, the whole fantasy of a truck that can crawl over anything and still haul plywood home. But the bill for that fantasy comes due in a few different ways. First, the brand sits below average for reliability year after year, and the Gladiator drags the Wrangler's oldest ghosts along with it. The solid front axle that gives you great articulation and also gives these trucks a reputation for the death wobble. That violent steering shake at speed that some owners have chased with stabilizers, ball joints, and track bars. It doesn't hit everyone, but when it does, it's the kind of problem you remember every time you merge onto a freeway. Then there's the money. Gladiators launched in a market that would pay anything for something different, and depreciation has come back to earth hard now that the new toy shine has worn off. If you bought one because you genuinely wanted a Wrangler pickup and you use it that way, it can be wonderful. If you bought it on a whim because the commercial looked cool, it's very easy for it to turn into a money pit, expensive to buy, expensive to set up properly, and not nearly as special when you go to sell it and realize the market has moved on. Number 11 is the Nissan Titan, and here, the regret is quieter, but just as real. Nissan has officially ended Titan production at the close of the 2024 model year, after years of steadily declining sales. In 2023, they sold under 20,000 of them, while Ford moved hundreds of thousands of F-Series, and the company finally decided the cost of keeping a full-size truck competitive was not worth it. The truck itself was not bad. The 5.6-liter V8 in the XD is an honest old-school engine, the kind a lot of people respect, and it will do real work. The problem now is that it is an orphan. No future, a shrinking parts and dealer picture, and resale values that drop faster precisely because buyers get nervous about a discontinued nameplate. If you score a clean used Titan cheap, knowing exactly what you are getting, it can be a workhorse. If you paid near new money at the end of the run, you effectively bought a truck the brand had already decided to walk away from, and the market prices that decision in every time you look up its value. Number 10 is the new Toyota Tacoma, the fully redesigned one, and this is where you can see that broken promise in real time. The old Tacoma legend was built on a simple, naturally aspirated engine that would run forever and never ask for much. The new truck threw that deal out. Under the hood now is a turbocharged 4-cylinder with a hybrid version stacked on top, and the early reliability data has come in below average. Owners are reporting touchscreens that freeze or go blank, glitchy digital clusters, and panel gaps you can literally feel with a fingernail along the doors and cab. On top of that, Toyota has already issued recalls for certain 2025 four-wheel drive trucks because the front drive shaft constant velocity joints were made with the wrong material and can deform or break, which means impaired steering and even rollaway risk if the parking brake isn't set. Here's the physics underneath that matters to you. A naturally aspirated engine spends its life loafing, low stress, moderate temperatures, lots of margin built in. A small turbo engine spends its life under boost and heat to make the same power, and heat is what kills engines when anything in the system isn't perfect. So you're asking a smaller motor to do a bigger motor's job forever, then acting surprised when the edges start to fray earlier. The badge says Tacoma, but the deal underneath it is completely different. Number 9 is the Ram 1500, and the people who track this stuff for a living have it sitting at or near the bottom of the full-size class for predicted reliability, largely because of electronics. There is a recall out for instrument clusters that can fail to display critical information, which is a polite way of saying your gauges can go dark while you are driving. Owners talk about dead batteries, random glitches, and features that do not work when they should. Over that, you have got the engine story. Ram killed the long-running Hemi V8 as the main engine to make room for the new twin-turbo Hurricane inline 6, then watched early trucks come back with check engine lights, misfires, and cooling complaints. The backlash was strong enough that for 2026, they are quietly bringing the Hemi back as an option, which is a pretty loud admission about how much faith they actually have in the new layout. The twist is that if you chase the Hemi thinking you are dodging all this, it carries its own long history of lifter tick hammering the cam and exhaust manifold bolts that love to snap. Simple was better, and Ram spent years proving it by getting more complicated. Number 8 is the Ford F-150, the best-selling vehicle in America, and it's on this list because America's favorite truck has a money pit pattern that's very well documented. 3 pieces make up most of the horror stories. First, the 10-speed automatic, co-developed and widely used, can shudder, hunt, and, in too many cases, eat an internal drum that turns into a $4,000 to $6,000 rebuild. Second, the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 cam phasers can rattle like a diesel on cold start, and, if you ignore it, chew up the timing chain and related parts, which is a repair that routinely lands in the mid-4 figures. Third, the 5-liter Coyote V8, the one people buy for simplicity, has well-documented oil consumption issues on certain years, enough that Ford has published technical service bulletins, and owners report adding a quart between oil changes and watching the dipstick drop far faster than it should. Put all that together, and the F-150 becomes a coin flip. When you get a good one, it's a fine truck. The trouble is that when you get a good one is doing an awful lot of work in that sentence. Number 7 is where we cross over into the electric trucks, And we start with the Chevy Silverado EV and its cousin, the GMC Sierra EV. On paper, they're impressive. Huge ranges with the big battery packs, serious towing numbers, and all the tech you'd expect from a six-figure electric pickup. In the real world, the problem is the math. The Silverado EV, especially in high-trim versions, has been losing nearly half its value in the first year, selling for around 53% of its original price, just 12 months after somebody drove it off the lot. Put that next to a regular gas F-150, which still tends to hold well over 60% of its value after 2 years, and you start to see the cliff. Add in recalls for electronic stability control and other safety systems on heavy EVs, and you've got pickups where the depreciation alone is a worse financial event than most engine failures we're going to talk about. Number 6 is the Rivian R1T, and I'll tell you up front, I have a soft spot for Rivian because they actually built the thing and beat the giants to market. Owners adore these trucks. Satisfaction scores are sky high, and many owners say they would buy another tomorrow. The problem is that love and reliability are different conversations. On the reliability side, the R1T sits near the bottom of the pack. The 2025 trucks alone are carrying a stack of recalls, including one for an improperly grounded connection inside the high-voltage distribution box that can cause a sudden loss of drive power without warning. There are also recalls for exterior lighting that doesn't work when it should, seatbelt and suspension hardware, and more. Because Rivian is young, the service network is thin. So a problem that would be a quick visit on a mainstream truck can turn into your R1T sitting for weeks, waiting on parts, or a slot in the schedule. That gap, the one between how much owners love the truck and how often it sees a service bay, is the reason it is on this list. Number 5 is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and this is the saddest one to me because it's a good truck the company walked away from. In late 2025, after posting billions in losses on its electric vehicle division, Ford announced that the all-electric Lightning would be discontinued after about 3 years of production, and the name would come back on a hybrid, range-extended truck instead. That means if you own one now, you own a vehicle the maker has officially abandoned in its original form. Early trucks faced a battery recall over internal cell defects that could short and cause fires, with owners told to limit charging until the fix was in. Real-world towing shrinks the usable range to the point where the truck stops doing the job people bought it for. And depreciation is brutal. 5-year value loss is on the order of half the sticker price, with roughly half gone in the first 2 years in many cases. It's a nearly silent, technically impressive work truck undone by physics, and a boardroom that changed its mind. This is where I drop the first call to action in the full video. Right after you see how much money these electric vehicle trucks are vaporizing, I'd tell you plainly to grab my free ebook, Avoid These 17 Cars in 2026, before you step into a showroom. It's the easiest way to make sure you recognize trucks like these on a spec sheet before your savings get tied up in the wrong kind of experiment. Number 4 is the GMC Hummer EV, and this one is almost a piece of performance art in how badly the numbers add up. It weighs around 9,000 pounds in some configurations, which means every mile, every stop, and every charge is dragging a small building down the road. The cost to own data on these is staggering. Over 5 years, you're looking at more than $80,000 in total ownership costs once you add up depreciation, insurance, financing, maintenance, and charging. Depreciation alone can take well over $40,000 off the truck in 5 years, and there are real examples of Hummer EVs losing tens of thousands of dollars in value without ever being titled, or dropping $45,000 while still sitting on a dealer lot. Early hype pushed prices sky high. Then reality showed up. Questions about battery longevity, complex systems that only dealers can touch, and a thin market for used ultra-luxury EV pickups. The result is resale values that collapse in a way you would expect from a supercar, not a work truck. Owners also talk about eyebrow-raising charging costs compared to more modest EVs, simply because the Hummer's massive battery needs that much more energy to fill. Trucks have gone through lemon law buybacks when battery or electronics issues couldn't be sorted quickly, sitting for weeks or months waiting on parts. When you stack that on top of the depreciation, you get a vehicle that looks spectacular and drives like a sci-fi movie, but makes almost no financial sense unless your only goal is to be seen. Number 3, and now we're in the deep end, is the Tesla Cybertruck. Since launch, it's been recalled repeatedly, around 8 or more times in roughly 2 years of production, for issues ranging from stainless trim panels glued on with the wrong adhesive to problems with lights, wipers, and accelerator pedals. One high-profile recall covers about 46,000 trucks, where a stainless steel exterior trim piece, the cant rail, can delaminate and detach because the adhesive is vulnerable to environmental degradation, turning a cosmetic part into a potential road hazard. Owners in salty winter states are posting pictures of rust spots and staining on a truck sold as stainless and indestructible, and early range numbers have come in under some of the more optimistic expectations once real-world conditions are factored in. Financially, the Cybertruck is on the same ugly slope as other high-priced electric vehicle trucks. Values for first-wave trucks have dropped sharply as supply caught up and the novelty wore off, with some resale data showing a third or more of the original price gone in the first year. On top of that, the stainless body is a nightmare to repair. A parking lot ding that would be a straightforward panel job on a steel truck can become a big bill on a Cybertruck because the material and finish are so unforgiving, and insurers know it, which is why premiums tend to run high. The kindest thing you can say is that it's the truck of a bubble. The honest thing is that they sold a stainless polygon to people who actually work outdoors, and the bill came due as soon as real-world use and real-world math caught up. Number 2 is the Toyota Tundra, and I know exactly what that name is supposed to mean in your head. For years, Tundra was code for a 5.7-liter V8 that would run 300,000 miles in fleet service, ask for fuel, and not ask for much else. When Toyota redesigned the truck, they did the fashionable thing. They threw out that big, lazy V8 and replaced it with a 3.4-liter twin-turbo V6, the V35A I-Force. More power on paper, better numbers, modern technology. Then the failures started. Machining debris left in the engine during assembly migrated into the oil galleries and main bearings, grinding them away under load. Trucks began to knock, lose power, and in some cases simply stop, sometimes with barely 30,000 miles on the odometer. Toyota has now issued 3 separate recalls across 2024, 2025, and 2026 for this engine family, covering roughly 270,000 engines in Tundras and related models. The first wave, mostly 2022 to 2023 trucks, gets full engine replacements. The later waves get something different. A software-based inspection that listens to the crankshaft's resonant frequency, looks at drive cycle data to see if the engine has been under enough load, and then decides whether the number 1 main bearing is healthy without opening the engine. If there isn't enough data, the engine gets replaced. If it passes, you keep driving and hope the diagnosis was right. That's an extraordinary amount of complexity and uncertainty attached to a truck people bought because they trusted Toyota not to get engines wrong. Think about what Toyota gave up to get here. The old 5.7-liter wasn't exciting. It drank fuel, but it was a known quantity with margin built into every part. They traded that for 2 turbochargers, more stress, tighter tolerances, and a few miles per gallon. 4 years in, the company still hasn't been able to give a simple, satisfying explanation that makes owners stop worrying, and engines built after supposed cleaning fixes are still showing up with bearing damage. When the most conservative, reliability-obsessed brand in the business can't sort out a new engine, that's not just a Toyota problem, it's an industry complexity problem. Number 1. The most catastrophic truck you can be sitting in right now is the GM 6.2-liter L87 V8, the big gas engine in the Chevy Silverado and GMC Sierra, plus Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Escalade. GM has recalled close to 600,000 vehicles built between March 2021 and mid-2024 because manufacturing defects in connecting rod bearings and crankshaft machining can let the engine seize or suffer catastrophic damage without warning. Owners have had these engines fail with fewer than 5,000 miles on the truck, brand new, high-dollar hardware that just stops turning. When that happens, you don't just lose power. You lose power steering and a lot of your braking assist in the same instant, sometimes at highway speed, sometimes with the family in the truck. Here is where it goes from defect to insult. For trucks that pass inspection, no obvious damage, no diagnostic codes, GM's remedy is, in part, to drain the factory 0W20 oil and refill with thicker 0W40 synthetic, then swap the oil cap to reflect the new spec. The idea is to increase bearing oil film thickness under load and buy extra cushion for bearings that might be marginal. Mechanics and independent engineers have been openly skeptical, pointing out that thicker oil does not repair a damaged bearing. It just buys time if you're lucky and adds friction if you're not. Federal regulators have already reopened their investigation, and owner lawsuits argue that the fix is inadequate, while failures are still being reported in newer engines that were supposedly built after contamination controls went in. That is the worst kind of catastrophic. Not just that a truck breaks, but that the company knows, and the patch feels more like a shrug than a solution. Before you buy any truck, get the exact engine code and run the VIN through recall databases yourself. Don't rely on sales talk when there are known problem engines out there. On electric pickups, let someone else eat the steep first 2 years of depreciation and shop used under battery warranty, so you get the tech without the cliff. And for every truck, gas, diesel, or hybrid, favor the proven, boring powertrain over the brand new twin-turbo wonder. In 2026, reliability comes from designs with years of real-world data, deep parts support, and fewer surprises. If you want a simple shortcut, download my free ebook, Avoid These 17 Cars in 2026, so you can spot the worst engines and platforms before they're parked in your driveway.